Buongiorno and welcome to my podcast, My Way of Thinking, or MWOT for short, hosted by me, Lee Greeno, here live in the Man Cave every week. Now, as you may have noticed, things are a bit changed. I spoke about this last week. It's a gym, a gymnasium now. I had to move my pool table. This is my son's fault. And also, I still haven't got this banner sorted. It's just a white block. If you're looking on YouTube, I've got a white block. But there will be some nice graphics on there shortly. A nice My Way of Thinking banner. So, yeah, I hope everyone's coping all right with lockdown. Stay safe. Stay positive. We will come through this. Yeah, just a funny old time. Winter's coming now. It's a bit cold. So I've got my woolly hat on. Love my new woolly hat. Because I have no hair and I need a hat. For all those people out there who've got long locks and don't have to worry about your head being cold, I get freezing. I look like Rudolph's nose, the top of my head, when it gets cold. Okay, now my way of thinking is all about us amazing human beings that all have a story. Those stories can vary massively, but with the guests I'll be interviewing, you'll always be able to take a little bit of advice or insight into how extraordinary we can all be. Remember, 4 rules: 1, no bullshitting; 2, no judging; 3, no negativity; and 4, have fun. Now, today I'm talking to my first comedian. I managed to get one, Kyle Woolf, and I love this guy. This guy does so much good with young people. He's just so funny and he's just so engaging. You'll really enjoy this podcast. Now, unfortunately, his mic did break at the start of the podcast, so I said pull it out and we'll just go with the flow. So I do apologise now if his audio is a bit up and down at times, but trust me, you'll still be able to listen in, and it's absolutely fine and it's worth listening to because it's a cracker. So here we go. This is me speaking to Kyle. So welcome, Kyle Woolf.
Hello, Lee. How are you?
I'm all right. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm in an okay place today. It's a bit weird because last night, my brain was in a bit of a scattered. Was a bit scattered, to be honest. Like, what would be a sensible thing for you to be doing at 1:30 in the morning? What sensible thing?
Watching TV, some series.
Okay, brilliant. My brain said the most sensible thing to do at 1:30 this morning would be have a shave. So that's where we're at, and I've been up since 8 and I've been awake since 8 a.m. and now I'm here talking to you. So
I'll tell you what,
I'm happy to be here.
Lockdown messes your brain up though, doesn't it? It does. You do silly things, don't you, with lockdown?
Yeah. Here's the thing though, I'm not really technically locked down because my day job, I work in a school. Right. So lockdown hasn't really, other than not seeing mates and that, it's really fucking weird because I'm technically not locked down at all.
Yeah. It's still there though, isn't it? It still feels weird. You know what I mean? Because I'm still doing some work as well. But it does make you do strange things. But we'll get on to that anyway, and we'll talk about everything. But I always look at the news in the morning, and I like to find a couple of uplifting stories to start the podcast on. So I was having a look this morning, and I've got a couple of crackers for you. So this is one that I found. I think it's been on there a while, actually, but I just had to tell you about it. This is a toothbrush was removed from a man's stomach after he swallowed it while brushing his teeth.
How the fuck do you swallow a toothbrush?
I know, right? So, a bloody toothbrush.
Someone like that shouldn't, not to be rude, but someone like that shouldn't be living without supervision. If you're pushing a toothbrush down your throat, then you're either there's no gag reflex, and you should probably be getting paid for doing stuff like that.
It's just
or you shouldn't be allowed to live unaccompanied.
Hey, listen to this, right? So it says doctors removed the 19 centimetre long brush, so it's proper brush, within not one of them little cheap, you know. I could even sort of understand it if it was one of them travel little shitty things.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, that'd be perfectly understandable.
Yeah. Full 19 centimetres. The patient, whose name has been withheld, surprise, was brushing his teeth when it slipped. He rushed to a nearby health clinic, which quickly referred him to a hospital. An X-ray and further tests couldn't locate the brush in the man's throat. leaving the doctors to conclude it was in his stomach, and he had to have a minor operation. Dr. Bomi Tangyang from, this was in India, said the patient was taken to a private hospital. The surgeon of the hospital investigated, and then a procedure was the toothbrush was removed from his esophagus. Saturday morning. This meant that the toothbrush had entered into the stomach. The next day, he started taking oral fluids and had an uneventful recovery.
Fucking hell.
Imagine that down the pub with your mates. You never guess what I did yesterday. Fucking hell.
Do you know what? If that was me, I'd make myself as identifiable as possible because I'd want to get paid to do that shit.
He's a legend, isn't he?
Yes, that's it. As I said, he could be taking that on. He could be on one of those Got Talent shows. He could be doing well certain types of porn if he so wished. Mate, he should be making money out of this.
I'd write to Oral B, I would, and I'd say, Oral B, look, I've done this. I can say it was with one of your toothbrushes. Oh, shit, dear.
Oh, my God. Imagine that endorsement, dude.
Yeah, crazy. I just don't understand it. I really don't. But there you go. That did make me smile. And then the other story was a bungling burglar left his name and address at a crime scene, okay?
Bungling burglar.
Yeah, bungling burglar.
It's a bit like Wee Willie Winky, isn't it?
I know, yeah.
It sounds like there's something out of a really shit children's book. The bungling burglar.
I know, yeah.
Through Birmingham.
The news reporter, the guy who wrote this, Jack Hilcox, he thought about bungling burglar. So let me tell you about that. Bungling burglar who left behind a rucksack containing his name and address at the scene has been jailed. Surprise, surprise.
Burglars, no, I'm sorry. No burglar uses a fucking rucksack.
I know, yeah.
No.
I know. If you're a swag bag.
Oh, like it sounds like the. Do you remember the Hamburglar from McDonald's?
Yeah.
That's just what this sounds like with a fucking sack over your. What a dickhead! I'm sorry. You deserve to get caught.
I know. Malcolm Pike. I mean, he looks a complete scumbag. He broke into a garage in Sunderland, stole £150 worth of clean equipment. He was making his getaway and accidentally left behind a bag containing letters bearing both his name and address.
Oh,
you can see the police finding it, can't you? Like Chief Wiggin off The Simpsons, going, "Oh, it's got a name and address here. Who could that be?" Yeah, it says the information helped lead police to the suspect. The sergeant said Malcolm Pike is a prolific thief who's constantly prolific
thief.
He does it all the time.
Still doing stupid shit like this. So he's done this before and and they've kind of let him off. I'm sorry. Then that's the law enforcement. That's the law enforcement's. That's the law enforcement thing.
I know. They've put. Unfortunately for him, his latest offence was fairly unsophisticated. And I love it. And saw him leave behind a number of personal items, which directed officers straight to his front door. In addition to
sorry for him, man. He's clearly a bit special, isn't he?
He's very special. I know, yeah, very special lad. In addition to pleading guilty to the burglary, he also admitted another burglary and some other thefts, which police have called a crime spree. During which get this, the last line, during which he stole clothes from a family's washing line.
Oh.
God, what the fuck? This guy.
What?
This guy.
Oh, mate. Was it the same? I have no fucking words, Lee.
This
the
guy.
Stupidity that, well, first of all, where was that? Where was this based?
Sunderland, weren't it?
Sunderland. Right, what are the police doing in Sunderland that they allow people to go through people's washing?
Instead they're arresting people if they've got more than 6 people in the house.
Oh yeah, that's true.
While this guy's running in the garden going din 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 din. Ooh, Levi 501s.
Oh,
I know. It does make you think, you know, come on. I mean, I'm all against, you know, I'm against mental wards, the old-fashioned ones where they put straight jacket on, but they should put this guy in one. Just keep him safe, really.
Yeah, exactly. Keep him safe, and also, fucking, there are no words. Like, I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm trying to put a sentence together.
I know. He gives burglars a bad name.
He does. He really, really does. It's almost like he wanted to get caught. But he kind of, either he wanted to get caught, or he knew the police force in Sunderland are so redundant that they're not, even with a name and address, they're not going to figure out who it is. And to be fair, he was pretty on the money with that one, if that's the case.
I know, yeah. Can you imagine when they caught him and told him, he must have been, oh, fuck. I knew I shouldn't have carried around a bag with all my letters in.
Put my name and address, and they still found me. What?
Oh, dear. Anyway, so I'm glad you enjoyed them. Anyway, so
it's really good that you actually found some positives in the news right now. Because
there always is. The problem is the media like to put them right to the bottom, so you see all the shit first.
Well, it's creating a moral panic. It's about creating a moral panic, isn't it? Yeah. And that's what the media fears. That's what the media feeds off.
Yes, they do.
They feed off our fear, whether it's left-wing media or right-wing media. They still feed off our fear.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but that is the way of the world at the minute. Anyway, let's talk about you. So, Kyle Woolf, an actual comedian, first comedian on the show. I've wanted to be comedian.
I like that you put actual comedian, actual before comedian. That makes it very good.
He's not a pretend one. He's real.
I'm gonna write an Edinburgh show just saying with Kyle Woolf, actual comedian.
Hey mate, there you go. Easy.
You'll probably get some of the. You might get some of the royalties for that, but you know, as with most Edinburgh shows, it won't make any money at all. But,
So anyway, you obviously are a comedian, but what was growing up like, Kyle? Did you always know? Were you the class clown? How did it start off?
Here's the thing. Like, here's how I kind of reasoned it. Like, you could in my school, you couldn't be the weird kid because the weird kid got bullied, but the funny weird kid got kind of accepted, and that's kind of what I was. So I wasn't like the class clown or anything, but I did just about enough to make people laugh, and it was making them laugh was a survival thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Because if you didn't make them laugh, then you know you could probably get the shit kicked out of you. But I was lucky enough to be able to make the harder kids laugh, and so I kind of got not friends with them, but like accepted by them, and like you know was kind of cool with people, and that's kind of how it's always just been a defense mechanism, isn't it? So like whenever something kind of serious happens, the first thing that you think about is how can I make a joke out of this to make it a little bit lighter. I mean, it's not always the most appropriate thing, but like, yeah, I remember being at a funeral, I think, and must have been about 10 or so years ago, and the corpse was late, and this person was known for being late. So the first thing that came to me at like 16 years old was like, oh my god, they can't even turn up in time for their own funeral. So there's, yeah, it's just it's kind of a defense mechanism really, and like it's about them making people like you, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. But saying that, I mean, the alternative is that you're withdrawn and quiet. You know what I mean?
That's true, and that's not me. And if that is you, and if you are a bit withdrawn and quiet, I know a lot of comedians who are a bit more, well, you know, introverted and stuff. Well, to be honest, I think most comedians are introverts, but they are introverted, extroverted introverts. If that makes any sense.
I know exactly what you mean, because I'm similar. You know, I do all these things, filmmaking and radio and stuff like that. But actually, you know, I'm quite shy in certain aspects. You know, if we go to a restaurant, I like to be out of the way. You know what I mean? I always feel a little bit apprehensive. I'd hate to be famous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it must be awful where people just turning up and speaking to you. You know, if I see someone I haven't seen for years and years, I'm like, oh, I don't really want to speak to them. Do you know what I mean? It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. I've had situations where my face has been on a poster for a gig or whatever, and whilst that feels quite good, it's also a bit like, oh, okay, now there's an expectation. People actually know who I am, and that's kind of terrifying, but it's kind of good at the same time. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from. Fame just seems like this horrible. The levels of fame kind of depends what level of fame it is, really.
Yeah.
Because at the really upper echelons, it just seems absolutely terrifying. I would not want that at all. But sort of people knowing who I am and little bits about me, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. Where they appreciate you, definitely.
Like I've done a few gigs, and like, I met comedians who I've never even spoken to before, and they come up to me and say, "Oh, you're the guy on the podcast." I was like, "Yeah, that's me. Yeah,
nice. Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah,
yeah."
So you did that at school, and then obviously, so you're finishing school. Did you have a career in mind, or did you think, actually, I'd like to be a stand-up comedian?
I always wanted to work with kids and work with kids with behavior problems, because I'd done that I'd been like a peer mentor since I was about 14, 15 years old in my secondary school. So I kind of wanted to go into like either teaching or like youth work or social work. So I kind of tailored all my education and stuff and every job that I had from whilst I was at school to after school for university and that towards working with kids and young people.
Yeah. Where does that come from? Do you feel like you want to help young people?
Well, yes, because I know all the amount of behaviour and underscore that I've had when I was in school, and I know I've got some experience. I've got a lot of experience, so I can pass. I feel like some may disagree. I don't know, but I feel like I can pass that. I can pass some of the experiences and some of the things that I've done and some of the things that I've achieved onto young people, and that's kind of that is mainly what I'm doing at the moment. So I do youth work as well as stand-up.
Yeah, it's empathy, isn't it? I suppose it's understanding how someone else feels, and then thinking, oh, I can help them. You know, I can turn this into a positive thing. So when you left school, did you go uni or college?
Yeah, I went. I did sixth form at second out of school as well. Yeah. And then after sixth form, I went to Nottingham Trent University, where I did a degree in youth studies. And then after that, I did a master's course in applied child psychology. And from then on, I've been just working in schools as learning and behaviour support, and that's kind of where I am at the moment.
I bet that's an eye opener, isn't it, Kyle? I bet that's interesting.
Yes. It is. It really is, because it is because not just because you're not just working with the child or the children, but you're working with. In my role at the moment, you're working with literally everyone. You're working with the families. You're working with social services. You're working with healthcare workers, and some of it is quite harrowing, but a lot of it is really rewarding. But it is very, very eye-opening to see how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together, whether it be teachers, the learning behaviour support workers, social workers, families, how they all fit together to support the young person.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing, though. You know what I mean? You've got this young person and all these support mechanisms are surrounding them to help them. You know what I mean? Because I think there's nothing worse if a young person is alone. You know, that is a terrible thing. And it's the role you do is such an important thing, isn't it?
I mean, I was speaking to someone at work the other day, and we agreed that the kids at the moment, even though they may not see it, they're so much more lucky than we were. I don't know how old you are. I'm 29 and 30 this year. Like when I was growing up, when I was in school, mental health just was not spoken about the way it is, especially not the way it is today. So there's much more of a focus on it, and I think that they are in a much better position than at least I was when I was in school.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about negatives, but some of the positives in this day and age, is definitely that. I mean, these kids that maybe grow up and they feel like, they're, they not sure what sex they are, or, it must have been, back in the day, it must have been awful. You feel there's something wrong with you, whereas now it's a lot more accepted. And I would guess kids feel they can talk or say something to someone. And parents as well now are a lot more flexible and listen, whereas back in the day, I suppose, parents are like, this is this, and so it is definitely a positive thing.
Yeah, it is a positive thing. I mean, obviously you have the odd situation where it is a bit more old school, but you just learn how to deal with that. But the problem with today's day, with this day and age, is that we've got to really keep up with literally everything that's happening with social media and what kids are accessing, because that's just expanding on like a weekly basis.
Yeah,
that's one thing that I'm forever grateful for, that I didn't have to grow up in this day. I know, with social media and with the pressure of having to put your whole life out there, even though it's kind of ironically saying that, seeing as I'm actually on a podcast talking to you about my life.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, I always think now, this day and age, it swings and roundabouts, because, used correctly, social media is a brilliant thing. But I almost think in schools they should teach you how to deal with it, because, like you say, you get a young adult looking at Instagram and looking at someone that looks like they've got an amazing life, and they don't know how to interpret that and think, actually, that's not real. That's where it gets worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 29 and I still scroll through Instagram, and I do get a dopamine hit when I get likes on my photos and my videos or whatever. I do. Yeah,
I know. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you seen that? I don't know if you've seen it or not, but have you seen the documentary that Jessie Nelson did on Jessie from Little Mix, that she did about her image and all that kind of stuff? There was a point in that where she said the only reason that you post anything on Instagram is for likes, and I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That is literally the only reason, is to get acceptance from other people.
Yeah.
But the question is, where does that come from and why do we need it? That's the real issue.
Yeah. But like you say, for young kids growing up now, it's a bit of a minefield. I think that's where the parenting, parents now have got to understand social media, and then what they'll do is pass that through to the kids. But if you haven't got that parenting, which some kids unfortunately haven't got, then like you say, that's where they need a support mechanism, because it's just a minefield, isn't it?
What we kind of do is that we are often telling the parents about these new apps that kids use to like hide the screens on their phones. So it makes it so they can properly monitor what their kids are doing and what they're watching, because they can literally access anything, and that's terrifying.
Yeah.
But you know what? They can also access some great things as well.
Yeah. And that's not bad parenting. It's just parents not knowing. Exactly.
You can't if you don't know about it, then in your world it doesn't exist, does it?
No. So you've got involved in that. You're obviously very passionate about that. So now, comedy-wise, so you got into that, and then there was this little niggling thing saying, "Oh, I'd like to do comedy."
Yes. Well, here's the thing. I've always grown up around. I've been watching stand-up from a very, very young age, Like, I remember, I think my first introduction to stand-up would have been in 2000 when I was at my cousin's house and it was the MTV Music Awards, and the Wayans brothers were hosting it because they'd just finished Scary Movie, and they introduced Jim Carrey, and he did about 5 minutes of him not wanting to be there, and him actually umming and ahhing about actually coming to the thing, until Ron Howard, who directed The Grinch, who obviously that was coming out, and said, let's do this so you can promote The Grinch. And he still didn't want to do it until they said that he could introduce Eminem. And that was kind of like, oh, okay, he's not just an actor, he's actually talking, he's actually getting laughs. And I must have been about, 8 or 9 years old at the time of that. And I thought, okay, great. And then from about 11 and 12, I got properly into the likes of Richard Pryor and Chris Rock. I mean, not what your average 12-year-old should be watching, but it was mind-opening stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, this dude is talking and they are laughing, and that just looks amazing that people can actually do that. And then I remember being about 16 years old, watching Russell Brand's doing Life Live and thinking, almost anyone can do this. I mean, obviously now that I do it, I think not just anyone can do this.
Yeah.
There have been many, many times where I definitely couldn't do it. Yeah. And there probably will be many more times where I definitely can't do it.
Yeah.
But they made it look like, and made it seem so easy that they made it feel like, oh, okay, that's something that people can just do. And so the thought went away for a minute. For about a minute, I mean, 11 years. So I was about 26 years old, and I was just thinking of something to do which would push me to my limit. And I remember a conversation that I was having with someone during sixth form when we were watching a video of someone do stand-up, and they said the scariest thing that they could ever think of would be standing on stage, trying to tell a joke and no one laughing. So I was like, okay, I thought to myself, right, okay, I'm going to try and do that now. So I enrolled myself into a comedy course, and I know that if any comedians are listening, I know there's a whole stigma about comedians who do comedy courses because it's not the correct way to do things, apparently. But what I did was, when I started the comedy course, which was led by a wonderful comedian called Kate Smurthwaite, I thought to myself, I did not want to die. I didn't want to die on my first gig at the showcase, which would have been about 7 weeks after we started. So after the first week, I took myself off. I started taking myself off to open mic nights. So I gained experience. And gained performance experience. And after I'd done about 10 gigs, and we'd come to the end of the course, we had the showcase, and I told Kate that I'd secretly been doing gigs in between starting the course and the showcase, and she was like, all right, okay, you're opening the show then. And so a nice little baptism of fire. And so I did 7 minutes, did all right, invited a friend down, and from then on, it's been about 3 years. It's been about 3 years, and here we are, not being able to gig at this point because of COVID. But it's been a really interesting time, man. In that 3 years, I've done Edinburgh Fringe with a couple of friends of mine. Done a couple of competitions which are horrible, but you've got to do them. Yeah. And it's just been a wild ride, man, and I can't wait to see where it ends up.
Yeah, I love comedy, and I love black comedy, lighter comedy, family comedy. I love a whole range. Yes. And I love old school comedy, Richard Pryor, classic, people like that. And it's always amazed me, comedians, the psychology of it, because the headspace to know that you're going out in front of people with jokes you think are funny, and other people, your friends and family, might think funny, but when you deliver that to an audience, it could fall completely silent, and you've got to be so brave. Talk us about the psychology of it.
Well, my family have not. I think most of my family haven't actually seen me do anything. So my parents and my dad, haven't actually gone and seen me. So
yeah,
no, they haven't yet. And taking you through the psychology of it, it is just it's the thrill. What I kind of see it as is when you go to a gig, it's a bit like being on a roller coaster, right? Where when you're waiting, when you're waiting for your name to be called by the MC, you're just waiting in the queue. When you're walking up to the stage, it's like the roller coaster's going up the hill, and when the initial applause to get you on stage stops, that's when you hear the click, the click on the roller coaster, and it's downhill from here. And like you can either enjoy that, you can have a great ride, or you can be sick on yourself. And it's just I think for me at least, it's just trying to work out the fun of working out what works for audiences and what doesn't is what kind of what keeps me going. And also the mathematical not mathematical side. Well, actually, no, some of the mathematical side, because I like counting how many jokes I do per second, and how many laughs I get per minute. And if I get less than one laugh per 8 seconds or something, then I'm not doing something right, and I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Yeah. That for me, I hope I've not gone around the houses too much, but that for me is kind of why I like doing it, just figuring out like what works and what doesn't work, and be putting things together, and then connecting all the things which may not have worked before to newer things which kind of do work, and making them work together to form something that's even better than they were individually, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally, because I think that's the thing. People don't realise these top comedians didn't just walk on stage, the behind the scenes, the dedication, the rehearsing, everything they've gone through and that's what makes them so good, because as an audience, you don't even realise they just walk on and it's like they're just talking. But these top comedians are seriously dedicated. They know, they've gone through everything time and time again, haven't they?
Yeah. And also, what a lot of audiences don't realise, I'm probably never going to get booked by them if I say this, but I don't care. The shows like Live at the Apollo are always very heavily edited. Heavily edited. Yeah. So what they'll sometimes do is they'll edit in laughs where there weren't laughs, and they'll edit in silences where there weren't silences, so they can make the performance look as good or bad as they want. But the comedians will just pop up out of nowhere. They never just pop out of nowhere like I expected, like I thought they used to. They're not just popped out of obscurity. They are people who've been working the circuit for sometimes up to 5 years, and have put a lot of money behind this career bar, and they've worked their asses off to get that 3-minute slot on Mock the Week or wherever.
Yeah. The psychology of it, amazing. It interests me because I'm a filmmaker and a writer.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of mindset in that I've done so many screenplays, you send them off, you get rejections, and people will say to me who don't understand, they'll say, well, why are you doing it? Why are you still doing it? And it's almost like, I know one day it'll lead somewhere. And if it doesn't, I've enjoyed trying. And it must be the same for comedians when they die on stage. You come off, you feel like shit, but you think, right, what can I do to improve it? I'll try again and again and again.
That's it. I have the Milliken. I live by Milliken's rule. That's something that Sarah Milliken does, and that is I can think about a gig, whether it's good or bad, until 11 a.m. the next morning. That's and after that, can't think about it anymore. Move on to the next one.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like that's really cool that you do like the screenplays and stuff. Like how many have you sort of sent off this year? You reckon?
Well, this year's been a bit different because yeah, it's been a bit obviously it's been a bit of a nightmare for me because I made a feature film last year. Yeah, I've done short films and stuff like that, and I made a feature film. And this year was the big year for me I was supposed to go to Italy to get the music sorted, have a big premiere, and it's all gone tits up. So now I've got this film and it's like, what do? Do you release it online, which is a bit crap, or do I keep hold of it until things are better and cinemas are open? So I'm keeping hold of it. So it's been pretty shit for me, to be fair. But I'm not complaining. People have had, far worse issues. But as far as sending out scripts, I've done it over I just generally tend to just send them through the years, get your rejections back, and and you learn from it. But I think, it's probably the same for you. I'd rather keep doing it because I enjoy it. I don't get paid for it. Hopefully one day I will, but I don't. Yeah. But I enjoy it. It's my hobby, if you like. Some people go to the gym and do other stuff, but that's my hobby, and I enjoy it. And I always say to my kids, I'll say, do something you enjoy. If you can get paid for it, that is the ultimate. But if you can't, always have a passion, always do something you enjoy. You know what I mean?
That's right. And it is important to, well, obviously you've got to keep the lights on that, but you've got to do something that makes you feel alive, man. And if for you that's writing, and for me it's comedy and also writing, and filmmaking for you as well, you've got to keep doing it. You've just got to, otherwise not that you're not going to enjoy life or whatever, but you've got to do everyone's got to have a hobby, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the big thing is our hobbies are quite, if you're not doing it, you don't understand it. So my wife will be like, what are you doing? Why are you up till 2 a.m. writing or editing? She doesn't understand that. But she's great because she's supportive. From other people, you have to be in that creative mindset, don't you? Like we are, and some people are, but I think a lot of people just, are happy to go to work and come home and relax, whereas we're just nutters that just...
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, I think for myself, and I think possibly for you, it's kind of what we do has kind of, even though we're not always getting paid for it, it's kind of bridged from being a hobby to being a massive part of our life, to being a massive part of our lives. It's just that we're not getting paid for it. So it's basically we're doing volunteer work. We're just basically doing volunteer work right now. It's fully merged into, it's evolved from more than just a hobby to something that is actually part of our lives now. Because on my Twitter page and thing, on yours as well, mine says comedian and yours actually says filmmaker.
Yeah. And for you as well, and for me as well, for me, it sorts out some of my mental issues, or it is like therapy, for me. I really enjoy it. And I guess it's the same for you comedians, when you're on that stage and you're just saying whatever you want to say and enjoying it. I suppose it's a great release.
It is a good release, but I think it's also important not to use the audience as your therapist because they are there to have a good time at the end of the day. And the comedians who, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that if you do treat it as like a therapy thing, it can be therapeutic. It's good as therapeutic, which it is, but it's not a therapy session. The audience doesn't always want to know about your deepest, darkest thoughts on a Saturday night in Watford. They want to have a laugh, have a drink, and they want to be entertained at the end of the day. And that's what people need to remember. And what you need to be able to get from that, from them being entertained, is a sense of joy. So it can be therapeutic, but I'm just saying this as someone who's pretty new to the game, like 3 years. But from speaking to people who are much more accomplished than me.
Yeah.
It's the ones who use it as completely as therapy sessions.
Yeah.
They aren't always the most successful, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. Now, one thing I am interested about is how is comedy in today's world, because we've got a lot of snowflakes.
Yeah.
You can't offend anyone. How is
that's
that?
not true. Not true. You can say what you can say what you want. You can literally say whatever you want. But at the same time, if you set you can do a set. Well, freedom of speech, I agree with that. But also, people have things to react to freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. So you can say what you want. If people don't like it, then they don't like it. It's down to you whether or not you are. It's down to you whether or not you're affected by them not liking you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or what you say.
Yeah. I think people have got to take it for what it is, haven't they?
Yeah.
If you do a joke and it's a good joke, you're not doing it maliciously. You know, you're always going to have someone say, "Oh, you shouldn't have said that." But as long as there's no maliciousness in it.
Yeah. But also, at the same time, if someone feels like they want to say something to you about the joke, then that's their prerogative as well. It's just about how you take it on. If you're willing to take it on the chin, and if you're not willing to take it on the chin, then you need to do a bit of evaluating yourself as well, on why you're affected by them being offended by your joke.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is, if you're offended, you need to look at yourself.
Yeah,
which is a great point for these.
Because ultimately, you're being offended by them being offended by your joke. Because you're upset. You're upset that they don't like what you put out.
Yeah.
And then you need to look at why you're upset by that. Yeah. And you then need to do a little bit of soul searching yourself. Yeah. And I think that's something that's really, really missing. I think that's something that's really, really missing, because it is genuinely a good joke. Yeah. No matter how dark it is, people will generally laugh.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it is like people coming on saying, "Oh, you're these people, how about these P words or these N words?" Then you're gonna get some backlash, and you've got to accept that.
Yeah. It's a fine line, but I think ultimately, if it's funny, it's funny. Yeah. And what I love about the British people, I think we've got the best sense of humour in the world. Mm. You know what I mean? And if you can take the piss, the one place you're going to be able to do it is in England. You know what I mean? Right. We're far more sophisticated than, say, Americans, without slagging the Americans off. Yeah. Obviously, we're an older country, you know, and just our sophistication levels because I've been to America a few times, and I'll say something really sarcastic, and they don't get it, and you're like, "Oh, right, yeah," and you're like, "Fucking hell, I didn't really mean you complete brain dead. It was a joke." No. Definitely.
Yeah, that's true.
Go on.
Yeah, that's true. We do have a really good sense of humor. That's one thing that, I'm really, really thankful for, that we can laugh at shitty. We can laugh in the face of shitty situations, and we do. And we, generally speaking, we do just get on with it, don't we? Yeah. Generally speaking, I mean, you get some dickheads, but then you get dickheads everywhere, don't you? Yeah. So, I didn't even ask if I could swear on this podcast. I mean, like a fucking sailor,
Is that what you want? Well, the whole point of the podcast was I do a radio program as well, and everything has to be very PC. Okay. So obviously, when lockdown started, I thought, I'm going to do a podcast because I can say what the fuck I want, I can swear, and and enjoy talking to people with that freedom, because I love talking.
So, a question about radio then: is there I did at one point want to get into radio, but there just seems to be so many more. There just seems to be so many rules about Ofcom and that, about what you can and can't say. And
I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but I love it because I do a film show and I'm talking about my passion. Yeah. But actually, and I've been to other radio stations and done bits on there. But when I see professionals do it, I don't know if I'd love it, because it's almost an alter ego. It's not really you.
No.
Because you've got to be so impartial. And I don't think I could stick with that. I think, I see really good presenters and they'll switch the mic off and they'll say something and I'll think, well, you judgmental bastard.
Yeah.
And then they'll switch the mic back on. None of the audience will ever guess they're judgmental.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Now, if that's what you're into, that's great. I mean, like, we're having this conversation now. If this was on radio, I'll be like, so Kyle, what are you doing? How have you enjoyed Comedian? Yeah. And it's like, if you want to do that, then great. But I think if you want to get on radio because you want people to understand you and be real, I think podcasts are the way. You know what I mean?
I mean, sorry, the last person, I think the last real in inverted commas. No, actually, no, not the last real one. I think one of the people who actually got the balance right, and I know I'm going to get stick for this, probably from you as well, was Nick Grimshaw.
Yeah. He wasn't bad.
He would be a judgmental, sucky bastard, but he'd do it with a bit of humour, wouldn't he?
Yeah. You do get that. You do, you still get that. But I think the majority, and you have to have that power because if you're starting, you play this song, you talk about this, you don't talk about, and to get started, you've got a very few, like Chris Moore's probably is managed because of his power. Yeah. He's pretty much there, but the majority of radio, a lot of BBC radio and stuff like that, it's they're running to a script really. And
here's the thing: it's all apart from the BBC, it's all owned by massive financial investors now. Like Capital's owned by Global, whatever Global does, and others as well.
Yeah, and they're a product, aren't they? They want people to listen to their adverts to make money. And that's the other thing about radio, is a business. You know what I mean? They have to make money. They have to put the adverts on. Obviously, the BBC don't, but there's other ways to get that. Your license fee, but that's another fucking story. But so they are a business. And I think what's happening more and more with podcasts, people like Joe Rogan, for instance, is people are looking at him and thinking he's having a chat and saying what he wants and doing really well with it. So I definitely think with podcasts, I think that's the future. Whether radio dies, I don't know. I don't
think it's ever going to die. So I think enough people are going to be having it on their cars I think that it is kind of a stagnant media form at this point because you can just literally, if you want to hear people talking, you can just put on a podcast, and if you want to hear music without people talking, just walk on whatever your chosen form of streaming service is.
Yeah, radio's easy listening, isn't it? You can have it on the background, you can have it on in the afternoon. Whereas podcasts, I think you're a bit more involved, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is elements to that, but I think you can also just have podcasts on the background as well if you're like driving or whatever.
Yeah, true. So where do you see the future then, Kyle? The future for you as a comedian and the future?
Right, okay. So if you'd have asked me this last year, I'd have been able to give you a pretty detailed plan about how I've seen this happening. Yeah. However, because of both the lockdowns, I'm in a bit of a weird place. I'm in a bit of a weird place at the moment with it because I think that the comedy industry needs to get back on its feet, and to be able to do that, people need to actually get people who have comedy as a sole livelihood need to get paid first.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the main priority at this point. I've got a couple of things up my sleeve to help that happen. Not going to talk about it yet, but they're
top secret.
It's in the plan. I don't like talking about things until they're actually properly, until they're properly going to be happening. But I've got a couple of things in the pipeline for potential, most likely in 2021, to help getting people gigs and getting things started up again. for me, I think what the future holds for me really is mainly, well, gigging as much as I can, and podcast. Well, getting the podcast, getting the podcast a bit more widely known than it already is. Going back up to Edinburgh next year, but maybe not as a performer, because the people who got a show this year, they're going to be getting the priority for next year. Yeah. But going up and doing some interviews there, and I think in 2022, potentially looking, at the end of 2021 to 2022, potentially looking for agents and stuff.
Yeah. I think we've just got to run with it, haven't we? I think the key is to keep ticking over. You know what I mean? Yeah. Keep doing something. Like I say, you've got your podcast. You know, no doubt you'll be writing jokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just keeping it ticking over, waiting and thinking this will turn around. And when it does, we'll be stronger than ever. You know, we'll really go for it.
And also, I think I'm starting to write a lot. I'm starting to write a lot more, like scripts and sketches and stuff. So getting them hopefully potentially sent off and seen by people would be a good step. And hopefully that will start happening.
Yeah. But if ever you want me to have a look at one of your scripts, send it over, mate. I will give you my opinion on it and give you a bit of a. Not that I'm a professional or anything, but I've read.
No, but
I've read a lot.
Yeah, you've done more than I'm guessing you've definitely done more than I have. So your eyes will be quite good, actually.
Well, we'll see. One day. Well, if you make it first, remember me, and if I make it first, I'll remember you.
Yeah, and we'll have each other on each other's podcasts constantly. So this will be...
Amen to that, brother. Now, I always ask advice. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about getting into comedy? And don't say don't.
Okay. Yeah. I'd say just don't say you're going to do it. Just do it, because the people that I've met enough people and audience members and stuff who say, "Oh, I'm gonna start this. I'm gonna do my first gig," and they never ever do. Don't talk about it. Just do it. And then if you die in your first couple of gigs or whatever, don't care. Well, just keep going, and you'll find out whether or not it's something that you like or whether you really don't like. Because it's not just about the getting on stage; it's about the traveling and the meeting people and there's a lot of sides to comedy other than what just getting on the stage. Yeah. And you kind of figure out very quickly whether it's for you or not. I'd say just if you're going to do it, if you're going to try it, just try it and just do it.
Yeah, it's good advice, because I'll get people that will say to me, "Oh, I've got a great book or I've got a great film, you know," and I'm like, "Well, write it then. It's no good. You can have the best book in the world, but if you've never wrote it, no one will ever know.
Exactly.
No one's going to do it for you."
It's a bit like at the school I work at, kids will come up to me and say, "So I did my homework, but I didn't hand it in." I was like, "Well, then you didn't do your homework then. You didn't hand it in. You don't."
That old classic.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. Now, I always ask my guests for a favourite, Kyle. It can be a film, a TV show, music, book, whatever. What have you picked?
Okay, so my favourite film is Stand By Me. And it really annoys me how few people have that in their top 10s list or top 5s list, because it's just an amazing film. And when I mention it to people, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that film is really, really good." I was like, "Yeah, I know." It's just so heartwarming, and I like the fact that it's basically the Goonies, but with more your mum jokes.
Yeah. It's what a great choice. I love that film. It probably is. I mean, people ask me my favourite film, and I always say you have a favourite film at a time in your life. So mine changes, but Stand By Me is up there. Just phenomenal.
It's been my favourite film for about maybe 12 years now. So I think it's pretty much staying there.
Yeah, it is. And if people haven't seen it, should see it. I think, and it's the actual heart of the film, isn't it?
Yes,
that's the key.
exactly. It's just about friendship and about loss and about everything, and it just makes it so much more impactful knowing everything that happened with River Phoenix after the film.
Yeah,
it's just an amazing film. And if you haven't seen it, what are you doing listening to this?
yes.
Get off this now and start watching Stand By Me.
Yeah, great favourite. Now, because you're a comedian, obviously, sometimes I'll talk about a favourite, and I've got a great book. If you haven't read it, it's this one. It's Steve Martin. Have you read it?
I've listened to the audiobook.
Yeah, great book. You know, this is such an eye opener because he talks about some of the pain. You know,
it's Steve Martin's Born Standing Up for those who are and listen on the audio format of this. But
yeah. You know, and he talks about the hundreds of gigs he did where not one person laughed. You know, but like I said, you'd see him on stage and think, oh, he's hilarious.
Yeah, but you don't see the workings and everything else behind the scenes that he talks about in the book, and he talks about how he kind of hated doing the arena stadium gigs because they weren't intimate. And that was really powerful, and that's really, really eye-opening to hear, because you just wouldn't think that if you just saw him on stage, would you?
No. Yeah, great. I'm glad you've heard that. Brilliant. Now, if people want to listen to your stuff, podcasts, things like that, what are all your handles and such?
Okay, so my Twitter is Kyle Woolf Comedy, so is my Instagram, that's Kyle Woolf Comedy as well. The podcast is called The One Where, and The One Where with Kyle Woolf, and it is going into its second series in, I believe, December. So I'm halfway through recording it now, and there's going to be like a trailer coming out on the Instagram in the next week or so. And that's going to be coming out very early December. And
brilliant.
I'll be putting gigs lists up at some point, as and when gigs start happening again.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a link to the podcast in the description notes anyway. But I've been listening to it, and there's some great conversations. I was listening to one with Aaron Hood.
Aaron Hood.
He says some funny things. And
he's a lovely guy. He's a lovely dude.
Lovely
dude.
That is a great podcast, and if people want to listen to something funny, it's brilliant. Well, look, listen, it's been an absolute joy, Kyle, to speak to you. We got there eventually, didn't we?
We did. Like the gods were on our sides today.
They were. And if you want me to come on yours, by all means, drop us an invite. We'll have another chat, because I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to, man. I'll drop you an email in the next couple of days, actually.
Excellent stuff. This will probably be released in a week's time, but I'll send you all the info then anyway.
Nice one. All right. Cool,
Thanks ever so much for coming on, Kyle. An absolute pleasure. Okay, and I'll speak to you soon.
See ya. Bye.
So that's it. Massive thanks again to Kyle for joining me today, and also to you for listening. Make sure you follow the podcast because over the next coming months leading up to Christmas and beyond, we have got some awesome interviews. Remember, the podcast will be streaming on the usual platforms, iTunes and Spotify. Please leave a rating on there and subscribe. It makes a massive difference. To keep up to date with Facebook, just put My Way of Thinking in. My Way of Thinking podcast. Also on Twitter is My Way of Thinking with a 3 on the end instead of a G. Every week I also put the whole conversation on YouTube, so you can see this wonderful beard developing, which is My Way of Thinking podcast. And finally, if you want to get involved, or if you think you might be a great guest, or you know someone would be a great guest, then get in touch. So that's it. Massive thanks again to Carl for joining me today. Make sure you follow the podcast, because over the next few months towards Christmas and through Christmas, we're going to have some crackers. Make sure you follow the usual platforms, iTunes and Spotify. So leave a rating on there and subscribe. To keep up to date, follow Facebook, which is My Way of Thinking podcast, and Twitter is My Way of Thinking with a 3 on the end instead of a G. Every week I put the whole conversation on YouTube as well. So make sure you put My Way of Thinking podcast in there and subscribe and like. And finally, if you want to get in touch, or you think you will be a brilliant guest, or you know someone will be a good guest, then email me, MWOT@AOL.com. Thank you ever so much for listening in. I will speak soon. Speak soon. Take care. Much love. See you later.